Good evening, everyone. I believe we are now live. This Today's event is agriculture and food security. It's on agriculture and food security post-Buhari regime, and it's powered by the NDH Nigeria Development Hub. Nigeria Development Hub is a digitized and delocalized chamber of business and commerce, which focuses on pan-industrial strategy with business interests primarily in education um, uh, and and education and technology. So today, as well as agriculture. So today we are focusing on the conversation, which does really and truly promise to be a very interesting and knowledge filled and impactful event. So I will now hand over to my colleague, Mr. Tega Temienor, to give a brief introduction of himself and also an introduction of the speaker. So, Mr. Tega, you have the floor. Thank you for being here with us. Mr. Tega,
Okay, I think
can you hear us? Uh, can you hear us? You might be muted. Your volume is fairly low. Are we able to hear Ortega? Okay, if not, perhaps Sarah, you could jump in.
hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Asaka, can you hear us now? I think there's something wrong with this
Yeah, with
connect.
his connection.
I'll just introduce our speakers. Okay. I'll introduce our speakers. Today we have with us Nero Owoola. I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you for joining us. Nero is the Senior Strategy Advisor, former Special Advisor to the UK Prime Minister. Thank you, sir, for finding the time to come join us today.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Okay. We also have with us Jamil Yusuf. Thank you for finding the time to come be with us. He's the lead consultant, Chief Executive Officer, Access News and Magazines Limited. Good evening, sir. Welcome. Right, Hauwa is back. This is Hauwa Bako Mohammed. Hauwa is the Executive Director, Social Inclusion and Partnerships through Agro Systems. Thank you for finding the time to join the conversation today, Hauwa. Hauwa, can you hear me?
Welcome. Yes, I can
Thank
hear
you.
you.
Thank
It's nice to be with you. You're
Okay,
welcome. Yeah.
thank you. Last but not the least, we have David Achalu, who is the Investment and Research Lead at Welcome to Africa International. Thank you so much, David, for finding the time to be here.
Thank you also
Okay.
for the introduction, and it's great to be here.
We are really excited to have you come talk to us about agriculture and food security in post-Buhari Nigeria. And I'd like to thank everyone joining us on Facebook, YouTube, and our Clubhouse family for finding the time to engage with us. Agriculture, as we know, is at the heart of the Nigerian economy. Largest employer of labor, we rely on it for our very existence. I think that's at the core of our meeting today. So I'll just jump right in while we wait for Tega to join us. I would like to ask our speakers to please take these first 3 minutes to tell us about yourself, and then tell us about the work you do as it pertains to agriculture and food security in Nigeria or internationally. I'll start with you, Nero, please.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. As you said, I'm based in the United Kingdom, formerly working for the Prime Minister, but my portfolio was around social justice and young people. And what that also meant was that I was responsible for the government response on issues around equality, diversity, and inclusion. Since leaving government, I run own management consultancy business, but I've also I now work for the Prince's Trust UK and Prince's Trust globally around equality, diversity, and inclusion. So that's pretty much me. Agriculture is a subject I'm deeply interested in, and I've worked on policy issues in relation to agriculture here in the UK. And I've also followed the debate in terms of Nigeria, and then beyond that, very interested in agriculture in Africa more broadly. One particular area that I'm interested in is agri-tech, the way in which we can use technology, the fourth industrial revolution, to look at improving agriculture, particularly in developing countries. So that's me. Thank you. We can't hear you.
Okay, thank you so much, Nero. Jamil, thank you for finding the time to be.
Have we lost Sarah? Hello? I think we might be having some tech issues. Sarah, we can't hear you anymore. Is that just me?
Hello, David.
Okay, awesome.
Hello, David.
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Tell us about yourself and the work you do as it intersects with agriculture, food security in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much. As you rightly introduced, my name is Achalu. I'll be representing the CEO of Welcome to Africa International, Ms. Bamidele Owoola. I lead investments and research too. Welcome to Africa International is a trade and investment facilitation company with focus on Nigeria's agriculture and maritime sector. We are also led by a board who combined has facilitated over 5 billion worth of investments, $5 billion worth of investments into and across Africa. Over the years, we've engaged investors as well as other key stakeholders from all over the world through our international conferences in Africa, US, Europe, and parts of Asia. We've also partnered with the likes of World Bank, African Development Bank, European Investment Bank, and Small Foundation, amongst others. So this is really just to prepare you for what is next. And I'd like to share some shocking statistics, really. There are 33 million smallholder farmers in Nigeria, and 90% of the food produced currently is produced by them. 50% of SMEs also fail in their first year, mainly due to lack of access to finance. And 64% of Nigerians currently in 2022 are food insecure due to deficit in local production. Also, this year, around sometime in June, inflation hit an all-time high, and food prices skyrocketed by as much as 50%. The implication of this really is that with the growing population, impact of climate change, and the pandemic, Nigeria is heading towards a hunger crisis, except we take aggressive steps to remedy this. And this is where we come in. At Welcome to Africa, we link those who need the capital to those who have the capital. And we believe that once agribusinesses are able to access finance, they can scale to produce more food, and this would also have a grassroots impact on smallholder farmers.
Amazing. Thank you for reeling out those numbers, really important, even as we dig in more into the conversation. Hauwa, Bako, Mohammed, welcome. Please tell us about yourself and the work you do, especially as it pertains to agriculture and food security in Nigeria. Hauwa, can you hear me? Okay. Otega, are you back, please? Okay. If not, okay.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yes. Otega, please do a little bit of introduction of yourself and tell us a little bit about why you think this event is even important in the first instance before I go back to Nero to ask him my next question.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today and agreeing to, and also the panelists. I want to thank you all for agreeing to be part of this. I'm guessing most people that are here are Nigerians and friends of Nigeria. We all know the issues and the challenges the country faces at the moment when it comes to food production and agriculture. Nigeria is a land that is blessed with so much resource, more especially with arable lands. And we're blessed with human resource, skilled people, and historically, we've been net exporter of agricultural produce. So the question is, we are trying to explore through this conversation how far we've come as a nation when it comes to food production. We also want to understand the challenges we face as a nation to enhance and increase food production, but also the opportunities that are available. Most of the speakers we have here are experts in their own field. Some of them have worked closely with this government. We have people like Mr. Jamil here, who've worked closely with the government and understands the challenges people face when it comes to agriculture. We would really want to listen to people like this, because part of the work that this think tank is focused on is how can we promote, elevate, and come up with policies that can help to that can support and help the government to increase agricultural production, but also help ordinary people to increase their production. And so I think this is what we're trying to tackle here. About myself, I'm just Tega. I am the CEO of Bluebowrc Research and Consultancy. We currently consulting with a couple of organizations, most especially the UK government. We are currently working as a consultant for the Department for International Trade, advising on trade and trade barriers across the world. So every now and then, I might chime in and make my contribution. I want to thank you, Dr. Sarah and Immanuel. I want to thank you that you will be leading this conversation. So I will yield the mic here. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tega. And I know you're not just Tega. You're much more than just Tega. But thank you for that powerful introduction. How are you back with us, please? Okay, I see that Jamil is back. Let's see whether his network is all cleared up now. Hello, Jamil. Welcome back. Can you hear me? Okay, but I can't. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Is it all settled now? Great.
Yeah,
great.
We'll continue like that.
Yes, we'll find out with technology one way or the next.
Yeah,
Okay, so please tell us about yourself and the work you do as it pertains to agriculture and food security in Nigeria. Just a little introduction of yourself and your work.
Okay. Thank you for having me. My name is Jamil Yusuf. I'm the lead consultant of Access News and Magazine Limited, and I'm also the technical assistant to the MD of NISAL. NISAL is called Nigerian Incentive-Based Risk Sharing System for Agricultural Lending. It's a subsidiary under the Central Bank of Nigeria with an investment of almost $500 million. It supports agriculture in all-round value chain, from the production, to the market, So this is what we do here. About Access News is a media company that I own, and I'm the lead consultant there. We develop some content on agriculture and some on technology. But what I basically do, I'm the lead consultant of Access News, and also the technical assistant to the MD of NISAL. As I earlier said, NISAL is a subsidiary of Central Bank of Nigeria that does the agricultural value chain for Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
I think that the NDH has done an amazing work in conjunction with Bluebowrc, RC, getting the right people to talk about the subject of agriculture and food security. Massive congratulations to everyone on the team. But please, we'd like to hear from Hauwa. How are you here now? Can you hear me? I'm sure we'll sort out the network issues. Okay, we'll go on. Back to you, Nero, now. Please tell me, in the course of doing your work, what are the major challenges you encounter? Agriculture, food security, equity, policy, strategy, all of that can't just be easy. Tell us some of the challenges that you face.
Well, if you mean in terms of Nigeria, I think the first thing to say is that especially with the war in Ukraine, food security is now a major issue of concern for the world. And most definitely, it's a major issue for most of the African countries, including those who are on the list of least developed nations, as well as those who are slightly more advanced. And in the case of Nigeria, I think we face many, many challenges given the population of the country. The potential for any sort of food crisis could be quite devastating in our country. But I think the major challenges that Nigeria faces per se would include the challenges around growth in production, challenges around diversification, and challenges around the sort of processing aspect of agriculture. And everyone you speak to will speak to the fact that Nigeria has extraordinary potential in this space, given everything that Tega has said in terms of the land, in terms of the sheer diversity of land as well, and the sort of products that we can produce in the country. But the challenge that we continue to have, I think, primarily is around policy and is around government action to drive production in the right direction. So we have a lot of questions to answer in terms of what government can do from a policy perspective. Of course, in any nation, you will also talk about the population themselves. And I think there are significant gaps in terms of our population where quite a significant part of agricultural activity in the country is still very much on the subsistence end rather than on mechanized and modernized farming systems and structures. So know-how is a major, major gap in the country. And education around agriculture, I think, is going to be a priority feature in the near future. I remember back in the old days of Cockcrow at Dawn. I don't know if you remember that show. Part of Cockcrow at Dawn was a mission from the government to begin to educate people about agriculture. And you can see that that sort of intervention we haven't seen for a very, very long time. So I think there are significant issues there around know-how. And then people talked a little bit also about once you have the know-how, then you think about how does the know-how support the sector in actually implementing what people know. So funding makes a big difference, and access to funding, I think, is a significant challenge in the country, but also other ideas around moving from subsistence to potential ideas around communal farming, different approaches to scaling up. There's a real issue there in doing that. And then the last bit, I think, is policy and intervention around processing. If we're still at that very early stages of agriculture, food security, I think issue of processing has a great role to play on food security. So there's those three key buckets of concerns and challenges for Nigeria specifically that I think we need to tackle.
Okay, Hauwa is with us now. Just before we deep dive into the very heart of our conversation today, I'd like to give Hauwa a chance to tell us about herself and the kind of work she does, especially as it relates with agriculture and food security in Nigeria. Hauwa, are you there? Can you hear me? Hauwa, can you hear me?
She, uh,
Okay, well, are you muted?
I think she's having a challenge with her own network too.
I think there are still technical challenges there. Okay, I'll
Yeah, yeah,
pause
yeah.
now and hand over to Emmanuel to begin to break this apart. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll figure it out at some point. Emmanuel, are you there? Please take it up from here.
yes, I am. I'm a bit sort of conscious of Hauwa because I really do want her to give an introduction, but we will do a deep dive, and once she's back with us, I believe she'll be able to give an introduction and answer to some of the questions. I guess we will begin with um, Mr. Mr. Nero. So the questions which we have today are questions which hopefully will shed some light to the listeners, bring some sort of understanding, and give us the opportunity to sort of even have conversation, cross pollinate between ourselves. So the first question we will be asking is, um, in terms of fishing in the Niger Delta, what is your perspective? What do you feel is the practical scope for motivating and incentivizing more people going into fishing, and also improving and increasing the amount of fishing that's done, because that's a market which we know is has an immense potential, but also has some hurdles and some obstacles. So what's your take and perspective on this, sir?
So I think people in the Niger Delta are experts when it comes to fishing, given that the geographical location, we're basically surrounded by water. And over the years, you see all kinds of responses around fishing popping up. A lot of individuals setting up their own fish farms and things of that nature. But that I think is part of what I was saying earlier, that this is an issue that's not going to be addressed by individual small scale or subsistence farming sort of approach. I think there are opportunities, obviously, so the expertise exists in the Niger Delta, the know-how exists, but the issue is about scale, and is about the second stage of what you do when you actually have the fish. Because on the one hand, if you talk about agriculture, then you can describe all kinds of activities that people can do. But if you move to talking about food security, you're talking about conservation, you're talking about handling, you're talking about value add and all of those different areas. And I think that's where we need to be making progress too. Because in the Niger Delta, particularly in my part of the Niger Delta, in Delta State, many people, you do have a few large scale fish farms, but the vast majority are very small scale. And we need to develop techniques around partnerships, around communal engagement, working together in order to scale these things up. And I think that requires some level of government intervention and government support to make that happen. And then on the other side of it, we need to develop the skills around the conservation and preservation. There are obviously traditional approaches, but there are now much more developed and much more advanced practices across the globe that we are simply not applying at the local level in the Niger Delta or in Nigeria as a whole. So I think we need to be exploring the opportunity of rapidly increasing production, I think through collaboration, but also through government action. And I think we also need to get to that second stage of really thinking about processing in relation even to fish. I think there's a great opportunity there to begin to scale up what we're doing and to begin to introduce new approaches as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nero. Um, So I guess my follow-up question, because you said you've given quite a um, um, broad scope and perspective. The follow-up question is, what, in your opinion, and in your expert opinion, what do you think is one of the major things, or what is the major hurdle kind of preventing us um, uh, from moving forward towards more of government action, or even increased partnerships, and how in your how do you feel? What are your thoughts on how we could sort of push past those, for lack of a better phraseology? So you have the floor. So.
So I suppose from what I've read, I think Nigeria, when it comes to the expression in terms of policy documents and things of that nature, I think we have that in abundance. The issue for our nation is implementation. And that to me is a real challenge. So I've seen that the government has a number of programs in place. Whether those are effective, whether the policies that are in place are being effective, they clearly not being effectively deployed, because you don't see the movement in terms of actually seeing progress on ground over the years. And these are things that have been discussed over and over again. But as I said, the challenge seems to me to be something that is coming to a head. And is not just a challenge for Nigeria, it is now a global challenge. But countries like Nigeria, given our population, given the level of poverty in the country, this is a real issue for the country. And food security, as you can imagine, has a role to play in security, full stop. And so there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of government. One, rethinking the existing policies because clearly they're not working, but also bringing up new ideas, engaging with international agencies. Obviously, the UN and UN agencies responsible for issues around food security are moving very strongly to engage nation states around those conversations. So I think there's an opportunity for us in Nigeria, one, through government action, but also through public engagement, because the risk is to all of us as communities. I also think that one of the problems in Nigeria is that there is always a focus on the federal government. And we forget that states are essentially, or they should at least be, independent operating entities. So at the state level, they should absolutely be thinking about how they develop their own state level strategy and how they deploy that, engaging people. And I think there are credible ideas that can work in Nigeria, that are already working in places in Nigeria. And I think we have to learn from those examples to find the relationships. On the citizen side, we can't wait for government forever. I think people can begin to think at town levels, at local government levels, and at that sort of state level, because collaboration is the way in which business is being done across the world. I've talked about this idea of communal farms, and I'm still surprised that very few communal farms exist in Nigeria, given that many of these towns and villages, especially in places like the Niger Delta, where they have the opportunity to really scale up if they work together. I think government policy needs to incentivize that sort of collaboration.
Thank you so much. I think we have a speaker who's a bit unmuted, some background noise. But yes, Mr. Ortega, you have the floor. I believe you wanted to.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emmanuel. So far, I just want to ask a few questions and then I'll hand over back to Emmanuel and Sarah. I think perhaps this question is for Mr. Jamil Yusuf. We understand from my conversations with you that you are technical advisor to the chief executive of NISA, and as you said, NISA is a funding agency of government that is supposed to fund farmers. I would like to know a little bit more about some of the work that you've done over the last few years and how you've actually, because as Nero was just saying, a lot of people don't know how the government actually supports and fund farmers. Perhaps you can speak about that for a few minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay, Tega, thank you for this your question. Well, as I earlier said, I'm the technical assistant to the MD on NISAL, technical assistant on stakeholder engagement. Stakeholders, people like you are the stakeholders. We need to bring you up to speed of what NISAL have been doing, what central bank have been doing in the area of the agricultural, sector. And the Nigerian Incentive-Based Sharing System for Agricultural Lending is a $500 million non-bank financial institution, wholly owned by Central Bank of Nigeria, created to redefine dimension measures, price and share agribusiness-related credit risks in Nigeria. What do you mean by credit risks in Nigeria? A lot of people want to go into agriculture and they don't have money to go into agriculture. A lot of people don't have those big houses, within Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, for you to give to banks so that bank can lend you money for you to go into that big time agriculture. So what NISAL does is NISAL comes in and because it's a government, because all the time a lot of banks don't want to do things with government because a lot of time you get scared, someone will eat up your money and you can't take him to court, you'll just be having a problem with him. So NISAL, Central Bank now created NISAL PLC as a public liability company for people to come together. Some part of NISAL is being owned by the Bankers Committee. 60% of NISAL is owned by Central Bank and 40% is owned by the Bankers Committee. So you come together, NISAL will now give you a credit risk guarantee. A credit risk guarantee means it's a document that NISAL have that you can take that document to bank and bank can now give you money. So just in case if you fault in paying that money back to the bank, NISAL will now come in and pay that money to the bank, and NISAL will now follow the farmer that collected the money. A lot of banks in Nigeria are not interested in agriculture at all. I don't want to call names of banks, but there are a lot of banks, when you get to them about agriculture, they will tell you that we are not interested in agriculture. Their only interest is, oil and gas. So government have done a lot of things in that sector. I don't know if you have any idea of the anchor borrower that our central bank has been doing. I don't know if any of you have the idea of anchor borrower.
I don't. I think maybe David might know a little bit more about this because this is his field. But perhaps you can talk a little bit about it and then we could bring in David.
Oh, okay. The Central Bank of Nigeria, I think so far have invested over 1 trillion naira from 2015 to date on the anchor borrower project. So a lot of farmers have benefited in the anchor borrower project. But sometimes when you talk about agriculture, a lot of young people will be looking at agriculture like an old thing. They don't, put it into agro business. So these are some of the things that federal government have been doing. But as we go further, I will explain more of what is happening in the agricultural space.
Okay, Mr. David, Jamil talks about 1 trillion naira, but you are a researcher. Has this 1 trillion yielded value at all in terms of how our production in Nigeria? And if it hasn't, what do you think the private sector can do or international investors can do to promote agriculture in Nigeria?
All right. Thank you very much for that question. So whilst we are plagued in agriculture really by a lot of challenges, and one of the challenges is access to finance. In the event that we do have this access to finance, there are still other things that kind of draw us back. The first one being mechanization and productivity and efficiency. So right now, no matter the amount of money you give a smallholder farmer, if he cultivates soya bean on a 1 hectare land, he's still going to get a maximum of 1 metric ton if he's very lucky. So I guess one of the things we really have to look into is increasing productivity. And a lot of ways we could increase this productivity is mainly through technology, access to information and technology. Most farmers also, so there are some terms that are quite foreign to farmers, and I think it's really important that people should know. Examples include sustainable agriculture, green farming, smart farming, precision technology. These things are really what the farms in the rest of the world implement, and they are able to really, really increase their yield as well as unlock value. Another stage really is value addition. Most of the time, we do the primary production and then we export it without realizing the full value, which would have gotten if we have processing plants that can cover this ground. So I think one of the things the private sector as well as public sector and any development agency should look towards is developing the secondary production component of the value chain, especially around processing, cash crops and the likes.
Okay. Are you done?
Oh, yes.
Okay, great. I'd like to jump in now, especially because of what, especially because of, David is done, yes. I'll like to take up a question for Jamil. So we know that the Buhari administration, they've done some work, and I'm going to mention some of them that were documented. The first is around the Bluebowrc program, where they sort of raised the rice pyramid, which was a big conversation in January 2022. There's also the agricultural promotion policy by the Buhari administration as well, and then the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative. For the Bluebowrc program, the CBN says over 3.1 million farmers were benefited from the process. Some others have said only 150,000. But the fact is, people are hungry. The cost of food, the record shows that is the highest under this administration. Could you shed light to us what is really going on? All these investments, all these initiatives, all these policies, but to seem that for the normal man on the street is not making any much change because the cost of food is really high. What do you think is responsible?
Okay, Doctor, thank you for your question. You know what is responsible for the food shortage in Nigeria?
Jamil, are you there?
Due to the yeah, I'm there. Yeah, are you listening? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Are we having tech difficulties?
We can hear, so we can hear.
Oh, okay. All right, beautiful.
Yes.
I think she can't hear. Oh, can you hear me? Okay. I think the major factor of this food shortage was due to the closure
I can hear you now.
Okay, beautiful. The major factor of this this food shortage was due to the closure of Nigerian borders. I don't know if you guys have remember when our borders were all closed. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
All right, beautiful. Yeah,
yes.
It's because of the border closure.
Yes.
All our borders, all our borders, because we used to our rice, our food normally come from Thailand and China, most especially the rice that we eat every day. So federal government now went on to close almost all the borders. You know, the borders around Lagos, the borders around Katsina, the borders around Adamawa. All these borders were the porous borders that you see smugglers coming in with substandard rice, because a lot of rice that comes into Nigeria are substandard. You know, when you look at them, some have been, they have been there for almost 5, 6, 7 years. So now federal government said, okay, we should all go into agriculture. We should start so that we should eat, what we grow. And I think it's a very important thing for us to eat what we grow, so that we can have revenue, so that we can create massive job for the people of Nigeria, most especially young people like me, that we need to embrace agriculture. So, going into new thing in any country or in any nation, sometimes it comes with a lot of price. It comes with a lot of difficulties. You know how difficult it is to tell a young man to just go back to the farm and just go and start farming. Everyone wants a white collar job. And as we continue to get this food across the world from places like China, Thailand, Singapore, we are just developing their own economy. Their own economy is growing every day. So agriculture was looking like something new to all of us here in Nigeria. So sometimes when you start this kind of things, it's hard, but we just have to see how we can, adapt to this thing day in, day out. At least we should try and see how we can, eat what we grow. Yes, the issue of food is people are having a lot of difficulties in about rice, about the price of rice, but government have to come in all the time so that a lot of things that goes into that agriculture can be subsidized, most especially the fertilizer, all the resources that goes into agriculture. That was central bank have been doing all these years. But yes, nobody will tell you why. Even myself here, I can't tell you why the food is on the increase all the time. I can't tell you why, but I know the major reason was the closure of all borders and for government to ask us to eat what we grow. But I know as time goes on, just like the GSM when it started, like our mobile network when it started in 1999, 2000, 2001, you can buy a SIM card for 40,000, 50,000. But as of today, you can get a SIM card for free. So I know as time goes on, we are going to go to that level too in the agricultural value chain and the agricultural sector. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Can I jump in there just briefly?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, so very interesting what you're saying, and this is not necessarily commentary on the government or any political perspective. But when you look at an investment of 1 trillion naira, and then from the research that you've cited, I don't know whether that's correct or not, but if that research is true, that 3.1 million people benefited from that, I wouldn't call that a strategic investment in any shape or form, because that seems to me to be microfinance for very small scale, if not self-sufficiency farming. And that is not something that is going to address the food security issue at all. What is clear is that Nigeria does need strategic investment, really identifying those areas where government intervention can make lasting impact on food production in the country. And very clearly, and I think this will be the real area of increasing challenge as we move forward, we can't afford the expensive imports. We simply cannot afford to continue that, where most of these produce that are being imported can actually be produced in Nigeria. So to my mind, that's something that needs to be done. And as I was saying earlier, scaling up our processing capability is incredibly important in addressing issues around food security. Again, strategic investment in infrastructure around that area is going to be incredibly important. Nigeria, we do all these small-scale interventions, and the government simply has to continue doing them year on year on year on year, and is a significant drain on the national resources. Whereas if we do that sort of strategic intervention, where these funds available are actually there to support large-scale production, to support infrastructure building, as well as supporting the microfinance end, then I think we will make a lot more progress from that perspective.
Okay, great. I think I have a question for you there, Nero. First of all, we're going to dig into the Niger Delta and your thoughts there. We're also going to dig into the Buhari approach to agriculture investment in Nigeria. But first, there's a report. 82% of Nigeria's exports, the agro-allied produce, are rejected in Europe. There was a report like that. But we also know you talk about food scarcity in Nigeria, but we also find that these challenges are cross-border. In the UK, people are struggling. In other parts of Europe, people are struggling to survive. So what's the challenge here? Are we getting this what we need? What are the things that we need to do to fix this problem that you talk about, certification and stuff like that, in terms of how we present our food? 82% rejected in Europe.
Yeah, so I would even say why are we presenting any food to Europe at all, where we cannot feed our own people? So that will be the question I will be asking. Strategically, is the nation directing policy in the right way? Are we focusing on what really makes sense for us to do? And I know there are Nigerian establishments in the UK now that export a lot of food from Nigeria. So if we are at the stage where we are absolutely self-sufficient as a nation, and we are exporting things that other people need in order to generate resources back to the nation, then I think that we shouldn't worry about that too much. That will improve over time. Packaging will improve. These are simple things. The minute some of these farmers really develop what they do, they will improve those things. It's not that difficult. In fact, you also saw that in other developing countries. But places like Kenya have really developed their technique, mainly because they work with big, I suppose, big grocery stores in places like the UK and other parts of Europe. Because of that, they've developed that technology over time, and you actually find that they collaborate in a very strong way with those farmers in places like Kenya and other parts of East Africa. I know, for example, they sell a lot of tomatoes to the UK and to Europe, peas, for example, baby corn, and things of that nature. And they have developed that technology because of that close relationship and that opportunity to supply to big retailers like Tesco, Sainsbury's, even Lido buys from those places. So I'm not really worried about that aspect of it, because I think if Nigeria gets into that sort of side of things, that technology will be developed. It's the technology is available. It would be just a question of people implementing that. But I think also in terms of, many countries are having to actually take the time to really reflect on their food security strategy and really think about the core elements of it. And then they focus on driving those core elements and making sure that delivery happens around those core elements. And I think that's what Nigeria needs to do. And it's not a question of government doing it for themselves. Part of that, as what we said earlier, is stakeholder engagement. Is actually making sure that the nation is fully aware of what the government is focusing on, what the government will drive its resources towards, and therefore supporting decision making amongst those farmers who are particularly operating at the business end of the industry.
All right, thank you. I guess my follow-up question would be to David.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nero, for your responses.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess my follow-up question would be to David. So David, in your opinion, what do you think is the one major hurdle to this to the increase in communication across board between stakeholders and the people crafting these policies, proposing these policies, in light and perspective of what may not be known to most, but is a sustainable sort of economy called the circular economy. What is your take on that? So the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. So I think I'll just follow up from where the last speaker dropped off. So there are many reasons really why we export particular produce despite us not being able to feed ourselves. The first one being that we have comparative advantage in producing these things, and then they're kind of in excess. But then the major reason why we do these exports is one, sometimes it's usually more profitable to export than to sell locally. I'll give you an example. So fertilizers are generally scarce in Nigeria. However, most fertilizer companies in the country export to neighboring countries because it's more profitable. And outside of being more profitable, they are also able to generate forex. So with regards to the fragmentation across these value chains, the agric value chain is quite simple. There's the primary production, there's secondary, and then there's tertiary. However, within these three segments, there are different private, public, and development players that are really just very disjointed. And the main reason for this is lack of access to information. In my line of work, I do a lot of research, and when I check now places like Brazil, Malaysia, and co, I'm able to get agricultural data going back to 20, 30 years. However, this is not common in the country. I would also give you an example, really. Earlier this year, I was kind of brokering a deal with a cotton buyer in Turkey. They wanted to purchase quite a number of cotton. However, by the time I went down to liaise with the smallholder farmers, I found out a lot of people in these villages had stopped producing cotton because they were hard to sell. So on one hand, there are people that have cotton to sell, and they don't have the ready market. And then on the other hand, there are people that really want to buy, but they do not have access to the source. So the fragmentation is really due to lack of information.
That sounds very extensive. Yeah. Was that Ortega? Ortega. I'm hearing some background. Okay. So we have Hauwa back with us. Okay, Ortega, you have the floor.
No, I think that was Doctor. Doctor, please carry on, Dr. Sarah.
Okay, yeah, Doctor, you have the floor.
Okay, hello, Hauwa. Can you hear us now? How are you
Yes,
there?
I can. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yes, we can hear you now. Can you please tell us about your work? Yes, we can. We're already into the meat of the conversation. Please do tell us about yourself and the amazing work you do in the AGRIC and in terms of food security in Nigeria.
Okay. Anyway, my name is Hauwa.
How are you there?
Social entrepreneur. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we
can quite clearly.
Quite clearly, loud and clear.
Okay. Let me.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I'm a social entrepreneur. I'm a practicing farmer. I actually farm and I'm a developmental economist, and I'm the ED of Pro Agro Systems. Can you hear?
100%.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
You can hear me. So actually, sorry, I'm having a little bit. Okay, I'm a farmer, a practicing farmer. Social inclusion and partnership. Pro Agro System is actually a hope for interconnected youth community and cooperatives where values created for all. Our mission is to build a sustainable engage in agricultural, and our objectives is to simulate sufficient through our base of us export, profitability, and increased revenue. To inspire the youth and employment in culture and agri-related business to play a vital role in providing an enabling environment for farmers, also connecting the youth to potentials in agriculture across multiple ownership, buying real full data capture, standard practices to stimulate affordable participate in agri-business thing. So that's mobile and what I do. Any question? Can you hear me?
There was okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, I want to stay with Hauwa a little bit. I read up on a bit of the things that you do, especially as a woman in farming. How is the experience? What are the challenges you face? What are some of the things you like to see done better? In one of your interviews, for instance, you talked about the shea butter and how Niger State houses the largest shea butter trees, but we've not been able to make enough from that in terms of exports or even to serve the country in terms of dealing with food security. So tell us about your experience as a female farmer and this whole conversation with doing things better in terms of agriculture.
Okay, I have some questions to ask going forward. First and foremost, how many women are in agriculture? It's not just a set database. Do women own land? If the land bought by them, if through inheritance from parents or husbands, are they allowed to keep it after marriage? If by the husband, are they also allowed to keep it after divorce or pass? I just have a few questions to ask before I go ahead to answer most of the questions. What kind of support government give to women? Is it technical or financial taking? Then on technical service, we'll be talking about capacity building, extension services, supply of cultural inputs. Are the women given loan or grants or patient capital or green funds? A lot of women can get loans. A lot of women don't farm for that. We keep on asking and it keeps on repeating. That's why we're shouting all around for gender equity. We need participation. Government to even be in the agriculture. It's not easy, but we need to change the narrative. And we're talking about it. We need to be more innovative. Ms. Nero has discussed, or rather, part of this discussion I've been hearing from the Queen. So now what can the government do based on your question? Now, to be able now to help women, is for them to establish and carve out acreage, just can own lands of their own, leading to them farming in cooperatives and not the way around. Because I think there was a question that was shared with women as cooperatives and everything. Cooperative is just, before forming a cooperative, we need to look at the owning the land, establishing a carved out acreage, whereby we own this land. Then forming cooperative will be supported by technical input from them. Technical input such as extension, insurance, irrigation. We have to create a layout where women can pull out one together as a team. Factors. Cultural consideration to be able to establish value processing like farm with proper technologies that can afford the provision of proper disposable. Did I go on?
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
It's breaking a little bit. I suppose we can just move a little bit out of that conversation. It's breaking just a little bit. But thank you so much. I perhaps want to throw this question to Jamil, Yusuf. This is a very critical part of our conversation. That one of the challenges to agriculture in Nigeria is the current state of insecurity in the country. It is no news that the country is going through a spate of violent banditry, clashes between herders and farmers, and also crisis we also see in every part of the country, really. What can, I know you are not a security expert, but what would be your advice? Because we have to be forward looking. The Buhari's government is coming to an end. We are going to have a new government in a few months' time. What do you think, from a policy point of view, this new government can be doing to make sure they are able to secure the future of agriculture in Nigeria?
Okay, Mr. Tega, thank you for your question. We have just started a program called Farmer Security Meeting that we started not long ago, some 3 weeks back or 4 weeks back. We are making the Farmer Security Meeting to be a zonal meeting in our 6 geopolitical zone. So far, we have done the Northeast, we have done the Northwest, and we are working on doing the we have done the Northeast, we have done the North Central, and we are working on doing the Northwest, I think, in the next 2 weeks. So the essence of this Farmer Security Meeting is where you bring in farmers in that zone. You know, in let's talk about maybe the Northeast, where you bring farmers from Adamawa, Gombe, Bauchi, Taraba, Maiduguri, Yobe, bring them together in one state, you know, enlighten them about the need to collaborate with security agencies, and the security agencies for them to tell the farmers on how to protect themselves when going to the farm, on how to share information with security agencies. So our target is to do this farmer security meeting in the 6 geopolitical zone. We are going to do it in the South, Southeast, Southwest, Northwest, North Central, and Northeast. As I earlier said, we have done in the 2 zones of Nigeria. We are working to see how we can do it in the next 3 weeks so that we can do it in all the zone. And our plan is to also go to state by state, bring farmers in that state, bring them together, bring security experts, bring the DSS, bring the civil defense, bring the police, bring the army, the vigilante, for them to tell those farmers, you know, okay, this is the information we are giving you. This is what we are telling you. When you go back to your community, go and enlighten them. Yes, we need to go into mechanized farming, but even if we are going into mechanized farming for this issue that we are talking about, at least that normal agriculture that we used to know, a lot of people will do it, because it's not all of us that will go into mechanized farming. If you go to places like Europe, America, you know, across the world, you'll meet a lot of people still doing that their normal agriculture that they were doing since their grandparents. So what we are trying to do now is we have started it with zonal meeting. As I earlier said, we call it Farmer Security Meeting. We are going to do it at zonal level, state level, and local government level. It's not an easy task. We are not going to leave all these things for government. Private sector needs to come in, because there is a lot of private sector investment in the agricultural value chain. So we have to bring security and farmers together to enlighten them, because a lot of farmers that you see are illiterate. They don't even know what is happening around them. You know, so you have to tell them that in that your local government, in that your community, you have a DSS office. In that your community, you have a civil defense office. In that your community, you have a police office. Please interrelate. You people should come together so that you can be telling, you know, security agencies what is happening around your environment. You know, a lot of people have left agricultural business to rural people, to villagers. A lot of us don't see AGRIC as a business. You know, we all see AGRIC as a culture. But if people like us now that we are on this platform talking about this thing, if we can come together, and you know, the issue of banditry, you know, in agriculture is going to stop in the near future. But it's a collective responsibility for all of us. The most important thing here is information. People need to give security agency information. When you see new people coming into your area, try and give information so that the security authority can take really care of what is happening around that area. But the issue of banditry and insecurity, I think, is something that we should not leave it for the government alone. You know, it's a collective responsibility for all of us.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Just one more question, please. I would like to direct this question at David. Uh, Despite insecurity in places, people will always want to do business. There's still a lot of foreigners in Nigeria. Every time I come to Lagos or Abuja, you still find lots of people of foreign extract in Nigeria because security is costed into business. However, the question is, we have a lot of people, I speak to them every day, that want to invest in agriculture in Nigeria. But one of the most difficult things is knowing how to go about it. Even Nigerians in diaspora, for instance, have a deep interest in investing in the country, but it's very difficult for them to know how to go about it. I think this is a good opportunity, and I think you are the best person that could actually flesh out the best way people can think about investing in agriculture in Nigeria. David, you are on mute.
Okay, sincere apologies. Yeah, so agriculture generally is a very risky venture. I think in 2021, Nigeria as a whole attracted around $800 million in startup funding. However, despite agriculture in Nigeria growing about 250%, we're only able to access about 15% of that funding. And this is really due to a lot of things. And one of the primary things is risk. So risk management in Nigeria is not really formed. And then agriculture is plagued with a lot of risk, from natural events like droughts and flooding to man-made events like insecurity, as he mentioned. So there's this shocking statistic too, that only 1% of Nigeria's 200 million people have insurance. So these are some of the things that investors usually consider. And whilst organizations like NISAL provide credit guarantee, there's really still a long way to go. So with regards to how to go about investing in agriculture in Nigeria, Welcome to Africa has an accelerator program, which we call the Upscale Initiative. It is a world-class program where we select entrepreneurs, especially in the agribusiness line. We groom them, and then we link them up with investors, as well as provide support throughout their entire process to ensure the highest probability of long-term success. And one of the key things that we've discovered whilst doing that is, whilst these agribusinesses need or they want investment and funding, they are not investment ready. So their models are not robust enough to accommodate invest for external capital and the like. So what we kind of do is to facilitate that. We model business operations as well as package it to be very attractive to foreign investors. So I believe for foreign investors that are looking to enter into the country, there are a couple of investment promotion agencies, and then we could also assist with that sort of facilitation to ensure that their investment is safe and yields the highest possible returns, really.
Interesting. Well said, David. So back to you now, Nero, and I would like to sort of zone in on the Niger Delta. Some persons have accused the Buhari administration as being North-centric. Most of its policies favor the North in terms of, and we've seen the results. We're doing very well in terms of rice and the grains. But the Niger Delta is still where it was many years ago. What is going on? What do you want to see differently as the administration winds down?
That's a very political question, which knows to answer. I don't know that what you've laid out is true. I mean, we hear these narratives, but in the end, you have to provide credible evidence to support it. And I think in terms of, but I also think, to my mind, that there is a significant role for state governments to act within their own jurisdictions. And I think there is a clear problem there of states not acting. If you can point me to some federal level programs that have only taken place in the North, then that's a debate that we can have at that stage. But I think the Niger Delta, to my mind, is absolutely ripe for accelerated development in terms of agriculture. And I cannot understand why we're simply not taking the opportunity to really turbocharge activity in this sector. And if I was engaging with governors in the Niger Delta or anywhere in Nigeria for that matter, I would say that there are really three key things that we need to be focusing on at this stage, maybe four things. One is being clear about the strategic goals that we want to achieve in terms of agriculture. And that gives you the basis of understanding what we want to support, what government should incentivize, and what they should disincentivize, and so on and so forth. Just being clear strategically for the nation, what is our core priority in terms of focus. And then the issue of know-how, we've talked about greatly tonight, that the know-how is still not there. We're still functioning as people who are doing agriculture maybe even 100 years ago. And that simply is an outrageous situation, given the fact that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Information is readily available for everyone, but unfortunately, the vast majority are just not able to access that information. So there is a need for intervention around building know-how. Then I think the issue of collaboration, and I mean this at all kinds of levels. Collaboration, I think, is one of Nigerians' core strengths, because we're simply not operating at the level where you're going to have large-scale farming in every single local government in the country. You're just not going to have that. So you do need people to come together and collaborate. And then we need to think about market linkages. The point that was being made earlier about exports, I cheekily was talking about why are people bothering to export. Of course, I know fully well why that is the case. But the point is that we need to be focusing strategically on what we need. And even our export strategy must be something that we discuss and we're clear about, because that has to be something that enables growth and development of the agriculture sector in Nigeria, rather than just a case of individual farmers wanting to make a bigger buck than they can make in the country, and therefore targeting their products at external markets. So we have issues to discuss and to come to a conclusion about within our own country. The federal government definitely has a role, and part of that role is to be equitable across the nation and make sure that resources are deployed for every part of the federation, and absolutely recognize our federal character. But at the same time, I think there is a great deal of responsibility at the state level for programs that enable state priorities to be delivered around agriculture. And I just don't see that happening either. So I would rather that we hold all our elected officials accountable for establishing clear strategies, but also hold them accountable for delivering to those strategies. And if they don't, then we use the ballot box to make better decisions for our country.
Awesome.
Doctor,
well said. Political
question.
Very much. Okay, go on, Jamil.
Okay, sorry for interrupting here. I want to concur on what Nero have said, and what you just said about agricultural investment in the Niger Delta. I know one of the states in the Niger Delta, like Delta State, have keyed into the agricultural policy of this administration. So sometimes, you know, when we started, there is this thing that Mr. Nero said about people forgetting about that we have state government, we have local government. All of us, we all ponder everything on the center, on the federal government. Niger Delta Development Commission alone, if it should have its own strategic plan very well, just to say, okay, all our funding of 2022 is going to be invested in agriculture alone. I don't think there is any country, there is any place around Africa that is going to compete with Niger Delta when the kind of investment and the kind of money that goes into the Niger Delta, if Niger Delta decide they want to invest that money into agriculture. A lot of time it's just about priority. Sometimes we have to differentiate priorities. Other places, their priorities are agriculture. Other places, their priorities are infrastructure. Other places, their priorities are, hospitality. Just take, for example, Cross River State. I think what Cross River State are doing in agriculture, I think they are even far than a lot of northern states. It's just the issue of priority. If a state will take the issue of agriculture, just like every month, Commissioner of Finance will come to Abuja and discuss about money. 36 of them will gather in Ministry of Finance, talking about money, talking about what they are going to get. If Commissioner of Agriculture, every month, they will gather in Ministry of Agriculture, discuss about our agricultural output in Nigeria, discuss about what we are going to be farming, what we are going to export. I think Ministry of Agriculture will do even better than Ministry of Finance. It's just the issue of priority. Every state should have a priority on agriculture, just like the way Cross River State, they have taken a priority in agriculture. When you see what the governor of Cross River is doing in agriculture, you will be amazed. When you see the kind of technology he's putting in there. If all states will copy what Cross River is doing, I think Cross River is a Niger Delta state, if I'm correct.
It is. Okay, thank you, Jamil. I'll tell you what more states are doing amazing work with respect to agriculture. The River State Governor, the able Wike, has moved the State University's Faculty of Agriculture to the food basket of the state, and that's a local government area. Fantastic work. We applaud him on that. And we thank all the governors that are doing amazing work in terms of agriculture as well. But now I'd like to talk to Hauwa. Hauwa, please tell us, what are some of the policies you want to see in the next administration that will favor women like you who are into farming? How are you there?
Yes, I'm here with you.
Great.
We actually need an enabling environment, as I say, or I keep on saying. The women are shouting for gender equity. We wouldn't say equality, we will call it equity, where we're asking for space, we're asking the men to give us a space for us to participate, to show them we can also do it. In some places, we always tell the men we're the neck while they're the head. The policies changes that I want to see the government, as I said earlier on, provide the agricultural infrastructure, providing like establishing courage, like lands, which will be owned by the women. Do you get me? Collectively, like let's say we can have like one owned by the female entrepreneurs, and maybe identifying the food belts in those areas. Let's say sorghum or potatoes, etc. Providing the processing facilities for us to take it to the next level, the next notch, and everything. Amazing stuff. Look at all and scale media and enterprise. Most of the CEOs or most of the people thriving there are the female. We're giving like an enabling environment, opportunity to lead, for us to have access to finance, just like the way the male gender are having access to finance, access to agricultural infrastructure, etc., access to technical inputs from the government. I should think we will strive and do better.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hauwa. I think women and agriculture, that's a broad conversation to be had. And I would like to encourage the CEO of NDH and the CEO of Bluebowrc to please organize an event for solely women, because I hear the responses, comments are streaming in about women in agriculture. More needs to be done in that area. David, are you with us? I have a question for you before I start taking the questions from the audience. David, are you there?
Oh, oh yes, I am.
Awesome. So international organizations are quite united in their conversation or their argument that the problem with agriculture in Nigeria is not really poor investment, it's more about poor implementation. And you have talked about
Mhm.
technology. What role do you see technology playing in terms of implementation when we think about agriculture and in terms of stemming our food security challenges, whether now or in the future?
Oh yes, technology really, really plays a very important role. As a matter of fact, there are investors that will speak with, and they are only interested if there's the technology component to the agri business. This is because technology can greatly improve yield as well as reduce post-harvest losses. So there's also something I would like everyone to know about agriculture in Africa, in Nigeria in particular, is that we produce almost enough to feed ourselves. However, post-harvest losses kind of reduce the overall production. So right now, post-harvest loss is stated at 51% for across all food classes. So that's really a problem. However, with technology, we'll be able to reduce this. Uh, Also, we have two seasons in Nigeria, the dry season and the rainy season. Most cultivation is done during the rainy season. And the impact of this is that farmers get rich in the rainy season, and in the dry season, when they are unable to farm, they use all their money. And then in the next farming season for the rainy season, it's really just like a cycle of poverty. However, with technology, people could implement stuff around irrigation where there's all year round farming. And once that is possible, you know that the input and the harvest generally will be coming in and in. So yes, technology really plays a huge role. I was speaking with a tractor hailing service
Are you all
sometime
here?
last week, and yes, so I was speaking with a tractor hailing service, and they're really just about one tractor for every 1,000 hectare in Nigeria. However, in other places, you have close to like 425 tractors per 1,000 hectares. So, and land preparation is really one of the most important things when you come to determining yield. So I think for every part of the process of cultivation and processing, technology is important. So we are also in the age of climate change, we need to manage resources, especially with regards to water, um, types of input to use, fertilizers and all. And precision technology would really go a long way. In places like Brazil, where they use IoT devices and the likes, they're able to target specific places where they need specific things, and this will generally bring down the cost of production. I think right now production is around, for say a hectare of rice is around 350,000 naira. However, compared to 2 3 years ago when it was like 150. So outside of rising cost of input is also how you can manage this input, and technology would be able to really reduce cost on all fronts.
Fantastic. To everyone watching, I'm sure you're being blessed and we're learning a lot from this conversation. This event was organized by, or is being organized by, the NDH and Bluebowrc, and we've been digging into agriculture and food security in post-Buhari Nigeria. I would like to just read out some of the comments from our listeners and take questions from our clubhouse audience. Everybody get ready. Nobody's joking. Gloves are off. So get ready. Questions are coming for you, Yusuf. Questions are out for you, Nero. Hauwa, questions are coming for you. Get
Oh,
ready. But I'm just
oh,
going to read
oh,
some of the comments.
What?
Can,
Just
can you give me 1 minute before I answer, before we start the question?
also give me
Okay,
1 minute
that's fine.
as well.
Okay.
All
I
right,
want.
that's fine. For now, I'll just read out the comments then. The nice comments. Take your 1 minute, but let me read out the
Okay.
comments. Everybody get ready. This is really charged up. I was one. For those avoiding political questions, sorry, you have to give our people answers. Okay, so this is Ndwa Barisi. She says she's enjoying this. So I applaud everyone on stage. Thank you to the organizers for putting this together. Someone here says, very insightful. With this quality of people, there is new hope for Nigeria. So you see, you're giving people hope. And what is better than hope? Congratulations to our speakers. Tessie Chris Birio says, I think the fact that women are strategically placed on the sidelines of agriculture is definitely a conversation to be had. Thank you, Hauwa. Hauwa, someone is saying thank you. And this is a signal to NDH, Bluebowrc. I said it. We need to have a conversation centered around women in agriculture. Okay, yes, this one is.
That.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Thank you, Hauwa.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, we
yes. do. Okay, great. There's another comment here. No, please, not the vigilante. Those guys usually don't take things serious. So, alone. Okay, so no vigilante. Someone here says, this is Future Johnson. And she says, I have always believed that investment in agriculture would help eradicate poverty in Nigeria. Thank you, Ma, for such privilege. Wow, lovely people. We see lots of persons from Elanhub, lots of students from the River State University. Shout out to you all. Okay, are we ready to take the questions now? I would like to go with the first one.
I want to take my 1 minute before the question.
Okay, go. Your 1 minute is up now.
My question goes to Hauwa. Hauwa, do you know that women are into agriculture in Nigeria? Do you know that the largest producer of cassava in Nigeria is a woman?
Yes, I know that.
Yeah. Do you know that she's? No, just listen to me. Do you know that she's called Queen of Cassava? Do you know that her annual turnover of cassava is 10,000 tons per year? And do you know that she makes almost $12 million every year? So women are already into agriculture. I think, Hauwa, maybe you are new.
We need more space.
Yes,
No, we have not stopped it. Nobody have stopped women from coming into agriculture. All of you are encouraged to come into agriculture.
I think in terms of representation, one is not enough. That's not even a number.
Yes.
And one is bigger than all of us. We have one that is bigger than all of us.
Interesting. Okay, Nero, your 1 minute before I read out the questions.
I was just going to support our brother who was talking about technology. As I said earlier, we shouldn't see the developments in technology as far-fetched or removed from what Nigeria can do. Agro-tech is fast developing, and I know that Nigerians are very active in that space in terms of coming up with technological responses to challenges around farming. So agri-tech, I think, is something that we really need to, if a government wants to develop, we don't have to rewrite we don't have to go back to the first industrial revolution. We're in a new space right now, and we can capture the opportunities that presents. I think technology is a great opportunity for Nigeria, both in terms of in terms of how people manage farms, how they get ideas, and so on and so forth. I'll give you one specific example, something called We Farm, which is a sort of an app that works in that space around information and know-how. So farmers can go on there, ask a question, and get a response either online or via SMS on their phone. And these are supporting people who have real-life challenges around their farming. Absolutely put a question in there and get an answer. And I think other Nigerians are also finding solutions around the access to finance problem through developments in fintech and also developments in trout. There are all kinds of developments that can help to drive support towards farmers, and I think we should be looking at all of those as well.
Exciting. Okay, I'll take my first question, and I think this one is directed at Jamil and Nero. This writer says, shouldn't state police be the policy to implement in this situation? And I'm sure it's in response to the issue regarding security. We understand what's happening across the country, herdsmen, bandits, terrorists. I mean, we know their role in terms of agriculture and what we're able to do in that sector. So shouldn't police be the solution in this case? Jamil.
Okay, I think that this thing all boils back to the federal government. Federal government have been talking about the state police for a very long time, and the state police issue, I think federal government is trying to see how they can avoid governors not taking advantage of state police into political activities. Yes, our states are already in need of state police, but sometimes when you look at the advantage of some things, you have to look at the disadvantage of that particular thing. But I think the state police is long overdue. So I think, yeah, they are right. We'll advocate for the state police too. Yeah.
Okay. Nero, what's your take on that? State police solution in terms of security?
So I'm going to say something counterintuitive. I think when people talk about state police, it's a shorthand. It's like a talking point that has been out there, and people tend to see it as a solution for everything, every ill we face. And I don't think that that's simply not the case. And the challenge that has been identified specifically around how our security agents are politicized around our major democratic event, elections. I think that's a problem that we cannot ignore. However, the challenges facing Nigeria in terms of security, they require a whole range of interventions, of which state police might be one solution, but I don't see that being the only solution. The structure that we have currently, we do have police across the whole of the country. We have, I don't remember what they call now, but we do have commanders that are focused on specific states. And so why can't they do what they're going to do when they are finally released as state police? They can do that now. The structures are there to respond. The problem with policing and the problem with that sort of response is a much deeper problem than whether they are state or federal.
Interesting. Okay, David, over to you now. I think I know Tessie Crisbiro, she's a lecturer at River State University, and her work is vested in gender studies. So her question is around women. If you can see the screen, she says, one woman doesn't make a population. What's your response to that? We have one woman who is doing well in cassava, but is that enough? What do we need to do better for women?
Oh yes, I do agree. One person is not a representation of an entire population. And this is because over the course of my career, I've worked with over 500,000 smallholder farmers. And these are really outgrower programs that receive social impact investments and all. And women, youth, but women especially, are disadvantaged because even in the land owning rights, women are traditionally, women do not own lands. So they do not even have the starting material to begin to farm. Then there are a couple of cooperatives that are like only male based. There are a couple of, so women just generally have very low access to quality inputs, training on best practices, access to finance than their male counterparts. And I think there are really a lot of things that we need to work around, especially with that. And technology really would solve a couple of these challenges, because for women that own lands, since they have multiple responsibilities of maybe taking care of the family and doing some other stuff, Mechanization will go a long way in solving a lot of their manual labor requirements. Yes, so I also think the government should work around policies to encourage women to go into agriculture. The thing with agriculture also is that it's kind of like split. So there are particular crops and livestock that women can do, and then there are particular ones that men can do. Let me give you an example of Fulani, the Fulani community. So Fulani men, they have the crops, they have the cows, but then the women are only allowed to milk the cows and sell the milk, which is still really limiting because a woman can't own a cow, a woman can't have a farm. She's just limited to selling milk. So there are really a lot of things, and I think education is one of the ways we could change that. Grassroots educations teach these farmers that gender is really just gender ultimately. And yes, that's really all. There are a lot of things that needs to be done across either in the
Can't hear
agricultural
you.
value chain. So may I know if you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, there are really a lot of things that need to be done with regards to social inclusion for women and youth.
Okay,
Wow.
Dr. Sarah,
Okay.
just a quick one. I want to thank everyone for joining. We are winding down, but there are still a few more questions just to ask. But I want to thank the panelists so far for being very patient and giving us your views on these issues. NDH is a think tank, and we will be going back and fleshing out some of the things you've spoken about and see what sort of policies can come out of this. We are not aligned to any political parties, but the most important work we do, NDH and Bluebowrc, is to make sure we can come out with sustainable policies that any party or government can adopt. So I would hand over back to Sarah. Thank you very much.
Amazing. It's so interesting that Tega brought that up. We are not political. We're interested and invested in Nigeria. That's what we're about. I have a question here from Imem Asiku, and she says, I understand that senators and House of Representative members have allocation for agriculture. If this is true, what is the process to assess these facilities? And is there any visibility on how well these funds have been used? Should I take it again? Jamil, I think you'll come in here.
Oh, okay.
I understand the House of Reps, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think senators and House of Reps have any allocation for agriculture, but I know that they have allocation for constituency project. It all depends on the senator if he wants to use his own constituency project on agriculture. But I don't know any senator that has any allocation on agriculture. But senators and members of House of Reps, they have allocation, but they call it constituency project. Some of them, like I think the members of House of Representatives, have constituency project that sometimes is almost 200 million, 250 million. Senators have almost 350 million. This constituency project, you'll target to a particular institution. So I can decide to tag my constituency project to Ministry of AGRIC. So it can do agricultural project in my own area. But I don't think senators have any allocation that is solely meant for agriculture. Their allocations are always called constituency project being executed by ministries, MDAs, and departments.
Can I just come in there briefly?
Yeah, Nero.
Okay, just on 2 points. One on the gender issue. There's an African saying that if you educate a man, you educate one person. But if you educate a woman, you educate a whole community. Any nation that fails to engage all of its population, particularly those who are marginalized, especially women, that nation is not ready for progress. And I think Nigeria needs to do more. And one specific recommendation I will make is that where we have all these allocations and all these funding, the government should set a target for gender participation, for female participation, so that we can know for sure that the resources are going to women in order for them to explore how they can participate in agriculture. On the point about constituencies, what I don't want to see is kind of lazy politics, whereby, as I was saying earlier, we engage only at the sort of federal level. That's not the real democratic citizen participation. I think in terms of the real question here is about how do the constituents of all the senators in Nigeria hold them to account for how they spend their allocations at their constituency level. And holding to account is not just about waiting till the end of the year and say, tell us how you spent your allocation, is actually engaging with them at the very beginning to set for them the priorities that they want to see funded. And at that level, I think people can absolutely say, we want to see the vast majority of your allocation or a good percentage of your allocation going towards agriculture. I think by the time we begin to engage in that kind of direct engagement, because these senators have constituents, and the constituents have power because they are the electors. But unfortunately, in our structure, I don't think we're using those powers effectively. So I think political engagement with citizens to build their understanding of the political process, I think that will have a major impact on these sort of things in Nigeria.
Okay. Let me just come in again, please, 1 minute. One of our own development partners in Nigeria, they are doing very well in women participation in activities. I don't know if you guys know about the UN Women. It's under United Nations, but it's called
I have
UN
two
Women.
questions just coming.
Sarah?
Okay.
You said you had two
Great.
questions? Yep.
All right. Going to explore all of those, but I have two more questions before we begin to actually wind down. Emmanuel, two questions. The first one is to David. Someone says, you've called a lot of numbers out, but the fact is, I can't buy food. Where is the food?
All
Things are
right, all right.
expensive, David. People want to know.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a really good question. So there are a lot of things that really go into food production as well as the prices. So the first one would be the cost of inputs, cost of fertilizer, seeds, and the likes. They're rising. The second one would be the yield. Yield is rapidly dropping, so farmers have to make up for this by increasing the price. And then there's a phenomenon around hoarding when people store food and then cause a price hike. And then there's also a disconnect between smallholder farmers as well as people that want to consume this food. So before farmers are able to possibly send tomatoes from Kano to Lagos, there will be a degree of post-harvest losses that will be incurred. So these costs will have to go into the final food prices. And I think one of the major things is that in the agricultural value chain, there are a lot of middlemen. So the food is not farm to table, whereas the farmer sends it directly to the people that consume it. There are middlemen along each of the stages, and this kind of adds to the prices of food and all. May I know if you can hear me?
I think so. There may be a slight lag, but she will tune in now. Shortly.
Awesome. Okay, so two questions. One is really funny, Nero, and the other one, which one do you want first? Funny or serious? No, I mean, the questions I have now are for Nero. Do you want the funny one first or the serious one first?
Put both of them together.
Sorry?
Ask both of them.
Which one do you want? Okay, so I have two persons. Okay, great. So one person here says, Dr. Nero, I know that you work with the King of England. Can you please ask him to cut us soap? I don't know whether you understand that, what it means in Nigerian context to cut soap. Okay,
No, I
I'll break it
don't.
down for you. To cut
Please.
soap means to send us some help or send us some money or something. I don't know where this person is getting this information, so please deliver
No, you have not explained it very well
Okay,
for him.
So,
to the more serious question, you can respond to both when I'm done. Okay, so this word, they say here, fishery in Nigeria in terms of agriculture offers only 3%. Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but repeat the question.
Can anyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'll take both questions again. Dr. Nero. Okay, Dr. Nero, I hear you work with the King of England. Can you please ask him to cut soap for us? That's the first one. And then the second one is the Niger Delta, where you have most of like the fishery, the industry around fish, supplies only 3% in terms of agriculture. What can we do to increase that number? Those are your two questions. If you want me to explain what cut soap it means, I will explain further.
No, I understand now. You've given the explanation already. So what I would say is that we don't need
Are you there?
Yes, I'm responding.
Okay, great.
So what I would say is that we Nigerians, we need to get down, get in the working room, and work to solve our own problems. We don't need anybody to cut soap for us. We can cut soap for ourselves. I think as a nation, we need to get serious and we need to get with addressing the problems that we face. And Nigerians are incredibly intelligent people, very resourceful. We can absolutely do it. And that's what I encourage us to do. In fact, we should hold our governments to account. That's absolutely true. But we should also hold ourselves to account, and we should also get on with the business of working with others. As I said, in terms of fisheries, the most important thing in many of these issues is collaboration and scaling up. Even government action can also be directed in supporting people to scale up. So I think that's where we need to direct a lot of things. And I would just also say that one of the things we haven't really talked about greatly here is that not everybody needs to be a farmer in terms of individually owning a farm. If we can scale up, that can absolutely generate employment. So job creation can be part of that whole process of supporting scale-ups, and people can develop their own skills, which they can go on to apply in their own individual lives. So I really look forward to much more development in this space in our country.
I think, Doctor, your line is a little bit slow. I wanted us to direct some questions in the direction
the questions
of Hauwa.
are endless. We'll have to begin to wind down now. I'll hand over the mic now to
Doctor, it appears you are in Nigerian time, which is slightly slower than normal time.
Hello, Hauwa, can you hear me? Okay.
Try. So
Please
try.
go on. I think I'll be for the network or something. Hauwa,
Check
can you
your
hear
WhatsApp.
me?
Check your WhatsApp. Yeah. Sorry. Let's see.
Emmanuel, I think at this stage, can you take over the interview so we can wind down? Perhaps because yours is slightly better. But Dr. Sarah, thank you so much for moderating the session so far. You did a fantastic job. And we hope to have more events like this. as you said, I just want to say something quickly. We are planning to have a webinar in the next few weeks that is focused on women in politics. We are going to be bringing a group of women that are currently running for offices for office of state in Nigeria in the next election 2023. They will be coming to share their experiences with us and their challenges. We also hope to raise some funds for some of them or for all of them. So please, we will be putting out the flyers. Please invite your friends and family. Let's support women in politics. I think this will take place in a few weeks' time. I know people like Nero and Jamil will join us, and they will be opening up their fat wallets to support these women in politics. But thanks, everyone. I will hand over now to Immanuel.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ortega. So as we wind down, I guess the last question I would probably direct to Hauwa would be along the lines of circular economy. I mentioned it earlier before. How do you, in your expert opinion and your knowledge about sustainability and sustainable agriculture, how do you feel we can push women to the forefront to promote more circular economy and get towards what is where the world is going in terms of economic agriculture? So you have the floor, Hauwa. Thank you so much for being here with us. Hauwa? Is Hauwa here with us? It seems she may be having some... Okay, awesome. We can see her. Hauwa, are you there? Okay, awesome.
Hauwa is in the United States of America with the Nigerian contingent. I think that's the word to use for the summit in the United Nations. So I'm not sure what sort of network she's using, because the Nigerian network is already bad. But if you now take that line to the United States, perhaps it will even be worse. But I think she's been coming in and out. If can you hear us by any chance?
Oh no, we lost. Yeah, we kind of. I think she's. Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Hauwa, can you hear me?
No, she's gone. But Emmanuel, please.
All right. Well,
I think Immanuel.
Yeah, I guess we can bring this to a sort of close. Thank you guys for all being here with us. We massively appreciate it. I guess this was one of the first of its kind, and we hope that there will be many, many more. I've learned so much today. This was extremely educational, and I think I know that we got amazing feedback from our listeners on YouTube, on Facebook, on Clubhouse, and yes, as my friend brother Ortega said, we will be playing this back and doing some extensive work on digging deeper, and possibly doing follow-ups to this and reaching back out. So thank you all. Guys in the audience, do follow all the speakers, and thank you all for being here. So yeah, I will yield my back to Sarah, and yeah, to give any final remarks.
Okay.
We'll go around
much.
all the speakers.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay, final word from you, Nero.
Let me just say a great thank you to Dr. Sarah and to Tega and all the team for putting this together. I think nations grow when people can have conversations about the issue that matter to them, and we can work together to find solutions. I think Nigeria is a nation with incredible brains, incredible minds. We need to put that to good use to solve some of the long-standing historical problems in our country. And I think I enjoy greatly what you've done here, and I hope to contribute to future conversations. By talking, we take a step forward, and I think we will build that great nation, Nigeria, back again. So thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you so much, Nero. David, final word, please.
All right. So I think for me, the ultimate goal is to build a Nigeria that can feed itself as well as others. And Nigeria needs to draw more attention to its SMEs because they are really the main force that can drive private sector-led economic development. So I would also like to say that while I applaud the Buhari government for diversifying into the non-oil sector, there are really quite a lot of policies that needs to be brought up as well as adjusted to drive industrialization, as I believe that industrialization is an investment magnet. And also for business owners and SME managers that may be on the line, there are really other ways to access finance outside of the conventional loans from the banks. There are non-interest financial instruments. There are ways to raise money from the capital market as well as impact funding.
Fantastic. Jamil, Yusuf, final word for us.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate this meeting. I look forward to more engaging meetings like this. I think this is the collaboration we all need to come together and do for our country. You know, it's the sacrifice that all of us must do. As Mr. Nero earlier said, you know, talking is the first step. Implementation should be the second step. And I think it's something that Mr. Tega, you know, we look forward to more engaging conversation like this, and will be, you know, available anytime, you know, you call us for this interactive session. Thank you very much.
Wow, I think that's the most important part. We have links in the United Kingdom up to the ear of the king. We have David Acholo of Welcome to Africa International. And of course, we have CBN. Anything we need, we already have. Thank you so much. Thank you to the CEO, Immanuel Adewumi, NDH. Thank you for the amazing work you're doing. And thank you, Tega, CEO, Bluebowrc. Thank you for the amazing work you're doing. Thank you to everyone.
Can you just give me a second, please? If you can hear me. If you can hear me, I just want to call Hauwa to give a closing remark.
Awesome.
Let's see if she will hear us, yeah. Let's see if it's going to work here. If it doesn't, then I just think it's just a little bit of a disservice that she's been the only woman on this call and she's the one with the network problem.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Hello?
Can you hear me at all? No?
Hello?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Network is...
Anyway, we're sorry about that. But yeah.
Technology working against women. That's the conversation to be had. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who followed us. But I must say this. If you have the time and you have the energy to do Nigerian Glass Boost, this conversation is continuing on Clubhouse. Join the NDH house, the NDH room. This conversation continues. But thank you so much, everyone, for showing up. We are deeply grateful. Have an amazing evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.